Welcome to 21st Sports, and we're talking the Denver Broncos at the Cincinnati Bengals in their Week 3 matchup played September 25th, 2016. And what a game this was! Very fiercely contested. It was a tight game throughout. And to get things started off, the Bengals jumped out to an early lead, 7-0, when Jeremy Hill punched in the end zone for the 3-yard touchdown to put the Bengals on the board first. The Broncos would get on the board with a 20-yard field goal by Brandon McManus, and it was 7-3 after one. Then in the second quarter, Trevor Siemian hooked up with Emmanuel Sanders for a 41-yard touchdown. A nice touch on the pass by Siemian, and Sanders reels it in, and the Broncos had their first lead of the game, up now 10-7. But the Bengals came right back to take back the lead with Jeremy Hill's second touchdown of the game. This one a 4-yard run, and that made it 14-10. But then right before halftime, Trevor Siemian hooks up with Emmanuel Sanders for the second time in the end zone for this game. A 7-yard touchdown pass that made it 16-14. The extra point was blocked, so it would be a 2-point lead at intermission for the Broncos. The third quarter was scoreless, and in the fourth, the Bengals would take back the lead with a 34-yard field goal by Mike Nugent, and so it was 17-16. But then, with about 7 minutes left in the game, Trevor Siemian throws his third touchdown of the game. This one to John Phillips, a 1-yard touchdown pass. They went for two, but they were not able to get it in on the attempted 2-point conversion. They tried to run it in, but it was 22-17 as the Broncos were now back in the lead, up by 5. And then, after forcing a 3-and-out, the Broncos get the ball back, and Trevor Siemian throws his fourth touchdown of the game. This one a 55-yarder to Demaryius Thomas. And with the extra point, it was 29-17. It's the Broncos now had their biggest lead of the game, up by double digits. And then Will Parks, the rookie from Arizona, picks off Andy Dalton, and that would seal the deal as the Broncos go on the road and get a big win in Cincinnati. Trevor Siemian and the Broncos are 3-0. So what a great season, a start to the season rather, for the Broncos. Of course, the defending Super Bowl champions, although they have the Siemian under center. Manning's not there. Osweiler's off in Houston. But the Broncos aren't missing either of them, as that defense is playing at a high level, and Siemian is as well. Of course, he's got a lot of talent around him, especially at those skilled positions. But that offensive line doing an excellent job as well, protecting them. And the Broncos coming up big, making the big plays when they had to, coming up big in that fourth quarter with those two fourth-quarter touchdowns. And, of course, the big stops as well with that 3-and-out and then the interception there in the fourth quarter after the touchdowns. So the Broncos coming up big time. And we'll look at the numbers here. Trevor Siemian, 23 for 35, 312 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 5 yards off of 3 carries. Andy Dalton, 21 for 31, 206 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. He had 40 yards off of 6 carries for the Bengals. The leading rusher in the game was Jeremy Hill. He was looking really good, especially early on. He had a pair of touchdowns. He had 17 carries for 97 yards, just 3 yards shy of the century mark. C.J. Anderson was the leading rusher for the Broncos with 14 carries for 37 yards. And the leading receiver in the game, Emmanuel Sanders, 9 catches for 117 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Demaryius Thomas had 6 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown as well. And the leading receiver for the Bengals was A.J. Green with 8 receptions for 77 yards. We also had that fumble on special teams. Both teams actually losing a fumble, as Thomas lost the fumble for the Broncos and Jones lost one for the Bengals. We look at the defense in this game, and Shane Ray, 3 sacks for Ray in this game. Of course, as I said, the rookie Will Parks coming up with that timely interception in the fourth quarter. And also Von Miller had a sack as well for the Broncos. And for the Bengals, Jones did lose a fumble, but he also forced a fumble. Clark had a sack, and Dunlap had a sack. We look at the first downs, 21-20, as the Broncos just narrowly edged out the Bengals in first downs. And on third downs, the Broncos 6 for 12, 50%. The Bengals 5 for 12, 41%. They went for it once on fourth down. They did not convert that fourth down. Total net yards 355 for Denver, 332 for Cincinnati. On the ground, the Bengals outrushed the Broncos net rushing yards 143-52 and had more than twice as many rushing yards per rushing play with 4.9 versus 2.3. But through the air, though, the Broncos 303 netted versus just 189 as Simeon out-throwing Andy Dalton. Simeon was sacked twice, losing 9 yards. Dalton sacked 4 times as he was under heavy pressure from the excellent Denver defense. Those 4 sacks resulted in 17 yards lost. But the penalties hurt the Bengals. 9 penalties for 69 yards, 5 penalties against the Broncos for 41 yards. And in the red zone, Denver 2 for 3, 66%. And for Cincinnati, they were 2 for 4, 50%. They did have the ball more, 32 minutes, 6 seconds versus 27 minutes and 54 seconds for Denver. This is a tough loss for Cincinnati. It looked like they had this game early on, especially the way they were running the ball, but they never really got things going through the air. Of course, it's tough to put up points against that Denver defense, and they've got quite the secondary and the pass rush as well. As the Bengals just, like I said, they had it going on the ground, but Andy Dalton really never got into the groove. And then when they needed him to make a play, it was the Denver defense that, forced that 3 and out there after that touchdown that gave them the lead, and then the interception after they extended their lead. And the Denver defense coming up big, and the offense as well, as Simeon, those 4 touchdowns, over 300 yards, a big day for him. And of course, Sanders and Thomas both over 100 yards receiving. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Which plays and performances stuck out to you? Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great weekend and enjoyed all the sports.